Hello friend, Amit is here and today topic is Hibernate Cache. I already finished that SQL related thing and QBC related part, and now we will see that how we can create a cache in related to different kind of cache. So that is a very important thing, and whenever we have a more round trip between our application to database, and if we see that exactly same thing we always fetching, and it is a degrading, it is a creating a problem as a performance terms, then we can cache that particular data and we can store that data near to our application, and so through that we can reduce the round trip between our application to database. So what exactly is here and how we can achieve this functionality, I am going to explain about that, and after that I will show you that how we can create the project kind of thing and how we can cache our data near to our application. So first, when we talk about the cache is a representation of DB near to application. So it's one kind of the data structure only, but that have a less memory and they can store some limited data only, and that will be stored into the or near to our application only. It's not in some remotely like a database in somewhere or some we have to create a transaction kind of thing. Again we have to fetch the data and again we have to show the data in our application. So it's not like that. It's a near to our application, a small database, and what the data we want to store here, that through that we can reduce the number of round trip between our application to database. So when you cache the read mostly data, you can reduce the number of round trip between your application server and the DB server. That will be increase the performance. Just think about that. We are fetching a always we are fetching a some customer record who belong to the some Chennai or who belong to the Bangalore. In within 1 hour, if we have a requirement to fetch all the employee who belong to the Chennai, and we are firing this query each and every within 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So that's just think about that. Within 2 and 3 hours we are sending more than 20 to 30 times that query. So it will be a transaction problem, or it will be create a problem between a two application, because our database is separate and our application is separate and we try to fetch it. So we can cache this kind of the data, we can store near to our application, and we can improve the performance, because now before of that we have to send that same query to the database and we have to retrieve that data inside the database and we have to populate in our application. But right now what we are doing, we are sending a query first time, and it will, once we will get the data, we will store near to our application, and the next time how many time we want, we can fetch directly to the cache. Once the database have the change, we will change that data into the cache itself, and we can update our cache. So here in general, when we are trying to achieve this caching related thing, so cache will be a 3 type of cache we can utilize. So what the kind of cache is here? So we have the transactional scope cache, we have a process scope cache, and we have a cluster scope cache. So whenever we can specify, whenever we split the cache as according to its behavior, we can split cache in the 3 parts. Transactional scope cache, first part, second is a process scope cache, and third is a cluster scope cache. And we will see that how that all 3 cache is a different by behavior. So first we will go through one by one. So I will show you like that. Whenever this kind of means like a transactional cache will be create whenever the transaction is started. So like the transaction dot begin session dot begin transaction, whenever we are writing, automatically transactional scope cache is activated and it is started, and as long as that transactional scope cache is active, as long as the particular transaction is running. Once we will commit the transaction or once we will roll back the transaction, that time only that cache will be destroyed. So Hibernate session cache is an example of transactional cache, and by default that session cache is enabled. We cannot disable that transactional scope cache. So transactional scope cache is provided by a Hibernate runtime system itself, and it's enabled. We cannot disable it. When the transaction is started, that time only that cache is started. So I will just want to show you in the diagram like that. If we have a true transaction here, transaction 1 and transaction 2, and continuously we have a 2 cache, like we have a 2 cache here, and we have one database. Database notation is not available. Okay, we can utilize this one as a database. So this one is a transaction. This is a tx1, here tx2, and this one is cache. And this is a database. So once the transaction is started, here that automatically one cache will be created. So per transaction have one separate cache, and that cache will be fetch the data from particular database. So whenever we writing some query or something session.save, each and everything it will be push first cache here, and when we will do the commit, that time only cache will be reflect here database. So like that, when we start to writing a code and when we are writing a session dot begin transaction, that time this transaction is created, and that is called session cache. So session cache is created, and after that what we will do, that session dot save and all kind of thing that will be pushed inside this cache. So if you want to save, update, load each and everything in the single coding, single time before just a commit, we will want to do 4 operation, then all 4 operation what we are doing with the session, it will become in the this cache itself. And again if we start with the second transaction tx2 dot means session dot begin transaction, then again one session cache is created, and all the persistent operation, either we are doing SQL query, either we will do the load, either with the get list, or there is save, delete, anything what we want to perform in the particular DB, that will be first push here, and after that when we will do transaction that commit, then only that data will be travel up to the database. So that is designed to means created by the Hibernate runtime system, and through that only Hibernate runtime means Hibernate is too much effective, because each and every when like that within one transaction we will write 4 or 5 times save, then it not go directly and save the data. Once we do that commit, that time only that all data whatever we will performing before of that we will take inside the one single cache, and if they will store into the MyDB. So between that each and every single task taking and updating the database, that here Hibernate is using all the tasks that we are doing before the commit, that will be pushed inside that one cache. This cache is called session cache, and session cache is automatically created by Hibernate runtime system, and this is always enabled. We cannot disable this session cache, and this session cache is only responsible to take our data that we want to perform in the DB operation, and through that only we are updating the database and we are retrieving the database. The next is a process scope cache. So here the process scope cache what do, here we not have a multiple database. So just try here what the thing is there. So we have multiple transaction again. In any application we are doing a multiple transaction. So I have a two transaction, transaction 1 and transaction 2, and after that we have a some cache. So I have one cache, and after that I have a database. So this is a database. So what happened here, when the transaction is started like that, we have a two transaction tx1 and tx2. tx1 is here and tx2 is here, as well as this one is a cache. And this one is a DB. So here what happening, here the transaction is related to only one cache. Okay, we utilize this mark only. Yes. So now this kind of construction, this type, when we utilize one cache with multiple transaction, so it is called process scope cache. So here per application maybe the multiple transaction is there. So here we can utilize only one cache to provide all transaction value. And before of that, what the session cache is doing, when the transaction is started, one session cache is created. So per transaction have one session cache, but when we would like to apply process scope cache, so here only one cache is there that deal with the particular database, and we will push all data inside the particular cache. So here multiple transaction associate with single cache, and before of that, when we are dealing with the session cache, only one transaction is associated with the particular cache. So here Hibernate query cache is a process scope cache. Hibernate query cache is a process scope cache, and that process scope cache is by default disable, and until we cannot enable it, until we cannot configure it, it is a not enable automatically. So we have to configure process scope cache, but session scope cache we no need to configure anything. Automatically Hibernate runtime system is responsible to create one transaction that called session scope cache, cache and that is always enable, we cannot disable it. But compared to process scope cache, so process scope cache the developer have responsible to generate it. Here multiple transaction associate with that particular cache, and that cache is by default disable. So we have to enable it, and we have to provide the configuration. And the next is a cluster scope cache. So what cluster scope cache is doing, so here maybe this first application and this one is the first application, and I have one more application, that is second application. What we have other transaction there, like here itself have transaction 1, transaction 2, that is a separate application. And here also we have one cache. So this is a second application, so again it have a transaction 1, transaction 2. like a transaction 2, and this one is a cache, and both transaction associate with the single cache, and that we are getting the data in this DB itself. And between the both cache, because both are fetching the data, so we have a replication R. We have R as a replication. So this kind of environment is called cluster scope cache, and here we have a load balancer also if sometime load required. So LBS also somewhere we have installed. Maybe we have a LBS also here, that is a load balancing server, that is a handle. So this kind of environment is called cluster environment. So now we have a three kind of cache. First is a transactional scope cache, that is a by default cache, and that will be always enable. We cannot disable that transactional scope cache. So per transaction, when transaction is created, that automatically one cache will be created, and that particular cache associate with particular transaction, and it will be fetched. Means once we have to save or something, that complete task push inside that particular cache, and when we will do that commit, then it will be a push inside the database, and when we will roll back again, it will be remove the data from database. So it is responsible to this cache. And again, if we have a transaction 2, then we will perform the operation on the particular cache, and we will remove the data or store the data in particular MySQL DB or something. So here next cache is there, that is called process scope cache. So this cache is a example is a session cache. So session cache is an example of transactional scope cache, and by default this cache is a enable, and we cannot disable it as long as that transaction will be run. That time up to that cache will be available for access. The next kind of cache is a process scope cache, and that process scope cache we have to enable. Hibernate runtime system is not providing any by default functionality to enable it. So just think about this up to this transaction cache and this database. So this is an example of process scope cache. Here many transactions associated with the single cache, and this cache associate with the particular DB. So this kind of cache can be accessed by the multiple transaction running in the application or process. So Hibernate query cache is a example of process scope cache. The next example, that complete picture, is the example of cluster cache, where we have a replication and multiple cache, different multiple cache associate with each other. So when your enterprise application is large scale application, then you must use a cluster environment, that where multiple server will be clustered and integrated with a load balancer. For means that if we have this kind of requirement, then we can use a means like a clustered environment cache. And in case of cluster scope cache, when one node cache data is updated, then it will be replicated by the other node of the data. So we have a replication automatically here. So this kind of functionality we have to provide, and we have to create either Hibernate cache, query cache, either process cache, and either a cluster cache. So Hibernate query cache is a cluster scope cache also. So when we will do that load balancer, all kind of thing we can achieve. So three things comes here. Hibernate session cache come and Hibernate query cache come. So Hibernate session cache is the by default enable, and that cache will be created by Hibernate runtime system itself, and we cannot disable it. Once the transaction is started, this kind of cache will be created and it will run as long as the transaction is running. But process scope cache we have to disable, it's not enabled by default. And whenever we will enable this cache, we have to write that particular code, and the Hibernate query cache is an example of process scope cache. Same thing is a cluster scope cache, where we have a replication and load balancer kind of thing, and our large application is there we are dealing the multiple databases or multiple application. There we can do the cluster scope cache, and here we will apply Hibernate query cache also. That Hibernate query cache is also part of the type of the cluster scope cache. Here we have to perform replication and all. So whenever data is come push inside the cache, we can remove through that evict method, that session dot like session dot. We can apply this method like we are using a session dot delete. We can utilize this method. So we will see that how we can achieve. Before of that, I just want to explain the same thing how Hibernate official site JBoss is explaining about the cache and what the new functionality is available here. And after that we will create one function, one program, and we'll see that how we can achieve the Hibernate query cache, and means what the step to creating a Hibernate query cache. So same thing what I explain is here, that is written here. So cache is a representation of database near to application. When we cache the read most data, so what database reading mostly in the database, we will cache it. Then we can reduce the number of round trip between our application to server and database server, which increase the performance, because same kind of data if we want to retrieve each and every time in the database, then it will be decrease our performance. So what we will do, we will cache that data in near to our application, and we can reduce the number of round trip between our application to a database. So in general we can have three type of cache. First is a transactional scope cache. That session cache, by default session cache will be created by Hibernate, and as much as transaction is created, that much cache automatically will created, and how long the transaction is run, that long that particular cache also running. Other is a process scope cache. So process scope cache, Hibernate query cache is a process scope cache, and that is a not enable. We have to enable that process scope cache. We have to write code according of that, and we have to achieve this cache. And the next is a cluster scope cache. For example, we have a large application, we are dealing with the multiple application, as well as we have a multiple databases, and we have a load balancer kind of thing, and means many application involved in clusterly or different location. Then we will utilize a replication kind of thing, and we can generate one cache. If one cache will be update, we will update all other application cache also. So transactional scope cache is there, other is the process scope cache, other is the cluster scope cache. So first level cache is a session level. First level caches, when we create a transactional, then we have the process mode like this: configuration, build session factory, open session, create transaction, open persistent class object, and process all the tasks. So session cache, multiple persistence object, store session cache when tx.commit method will invoke the transactional scope, store the database, and flush all the session object and close the transactional. So this the task are session cache is the first level cache, session cache is the transactional scope cache. Session cache is enabled by default and should not be disabled. Whenever we insert, update, or select, delete record, dot means that persistence object will be placed automatically inside the session. That I am saying that. So during of that one database operation, if you go to the any code, like that with transaction is started. So here session dot create query. Again if we write something session dot save kind of thing here, or otherwise we have other query also like a string HQL equal to from a student S. So we want to fetch all the student, and here we will fetch like that this SQL1, and we would like to fetch like that query q session dot create query or q1 here, and here through that q1 we would like to q1 dot list. So now we have a two operation. Now what we want from a student where a student dot email like placeholder and order by a student dot sname in descending order. The next we would like to fetch all the student on the particular table. So we are writing a two query here. So once we will do that session dot here like q dot list perform in one operation here, again we are performing q1 dot list. So we will did operation q also and q1 also. So we are getting the data, but both operation will be execute only one time when we will call tx dot commit. When we will not call tx dot commit, that will be not even affect that query not trigger. So what I am saying that in between that, in that duration, once the transaction is started, begin transaction and transaction dot committed, in during that how much operation we will do, even we can save multiple time, 100 times save, 20 time retrieve, 5 time delete, any operation that, but all operation will be pushed inside that one cache, and that cache is called session cache, and that session cache after tx.commit session cache will be pushed into the particular database and it will be affect the database. So what I'm trying to saying here, so session cache, it will be automatically created by at Hibernate runtime system, and as a developer we are not responsible to enable or disable session cache. Session cache is automatically created whenever we call transaction session dot begin transaction. Whenever transaction is started, automatically one session cache will be created, and until we not did this tx dot commit as well as rollback functionality tx dot rollback, until that time it will be run. We will revert back our functionality because we don't want to change this program. For explaining about this functionality only I give that example. So let's come back again here. So what did they try to say? Whenever we insert, update, select, delete the records, those persistent object will be placed automatically in the session cache, and after that when we can remove the persistent object from session cache using a bit particular object or clear, that time it will be clear. Until that if we do that commit, it will be affect the database. So I already mentioned this method here, session.evict, we will delete it from cache, it's not deleting from database. So second level cache, query cache is a second level cache. Query cache can be process scope or can be cluster scope cache. So what the provider we are using, we according of that query cache will be defined, either it is a process scope or it is a cluster scope. Process scope means the single application where they are dealing with the single database, but cluster scope means we have a multiple databases that will be stored in the different location, and we are dealing with multiple application also. So multiple application try to access the multiple database at a time, and all the database have the same data. So once any database is updated, we must sure that all the database must be updated, and whenever any cache will be updated in near to our application, for example the 100 of application is using same kind of cache, and once application number 1 have updated that particular cache, then it's our responsible to update all the caches that other application is using. So we can replicate that functionality, we can utilize the replication to update all the functionality. So cluster cache we have to do that replication functionality also. So query cache is disabled by default, and you have to enable explicitly, like that session cache. First means that process scope cache, before of that transactional scope cache, that we no need to do any enable disable concept. It's always enable, and Hibernate runtime system is responsible to enable it, and until the transaction will be run, we cannot disable it. Whenever transaction is a commit flush or rollback, that time automatically that cache will be destroyed. So query cache is disabled by default. Query cache is disabled by default, and we have to enable it, and you have to enable explicitly if required. Whenever we execute Hibernate query like HQL QBC, select SQL statement, then all the records returned by the select statement will be placed into the query cache. So we means particular query, what the query we would like to execute, we will cache that particular query. According of that, we can reduce the number of round trip between our application to database. So that is a step we will see in the program also. First, just go through that step. When we create a program, that time it's very easy to understand if you know the steps here. So what we will do when we going to implement query cache, session cache, here what the type of cache is there. So this transactional scope cache, we no need to implement. By default, transaction cache is activated whenever transaction is created, and we cannot disable it till now the transaction will be run. That time that transactional scope will be run. So session cache is example of transactional scope cache. So we cannot implement this kind of thing automatically. Hibernate runtime system is responsible to do that. Second is a process scope cache. Then we will see that how we can implement process scope cache. So here is the step. We have to enable the query cache by writing the following query in the Hibernate configuration document. So where we are doing the CFG document, where we will write property name, we will provide this term Hibernate cache use query cache. Use query cache is true. So through that, Hibernate will understand we are going to utilize a query cache, and then it will make like that query cache enable. By default it is a false. Even we will provide a false, it not do anything, but whenever we want to enable it, we have to write Hibernate cache user query cache user underscore query underscore cache true. The next step, we have to specify the provider. So many provider is there, so third party provider we can utilize for cache provider. So we have to register that cache provider. What the cache provider going to means you giving the service of related to caches. For example, we have to specify like that property name here Hibernate cache provider class. So now this example is org.hibernate cache. Cache is a provider, so we are going to do the cache. After that, here we have to note few things like a cache provider support by the Hibernate. Hash table cache provider is there, cache provider is there, OS cache provider is there, WWarm cache provider is there, tree cache provider is there. So this all are the transactional scope process scope cache. This is an example of tree cache provider, is an example of cluster scope cache. So whenever we want to utilize a cluster scope cache, we can utilize a tree cache provider, but right now we are going to utilize a process scope cache, so we utilize cache provider. So the stage is done. So next step, what we will do is specify the required cache concurrency strategy. Here what the strategy is, here we can use read only, non-strict read writes or transactional. So we have to specify particular cache, means it's one kind of the database also. So what the database we have to provide a transactional is like that. We just want to create a cache that our application cannot write, just read. So we can use read only. So according of that, what kind of the cache you would like to create, according of that you will provide a strategy. So you have to do here, you have to do like that, specify cache usage. Here something you have provide read only, non-strict read write and transaction. We will see this functionality deeply in JBoss document where they specify very well this one. So just think these three steps right now. First step, we will provide enable that query cache using a true statement. We'll write property name hibernate cache dot user query cache and we'll provide a true here. The next step, we will provide a provider class. So now we are using a EH provider. So EH provider fully specified classified path we can utilize here. This thing we can utilize like a EH cache provider. Other provider is there like a hash table provider, EH cache provider, OS cache provider, swarm provider, tree cache provider. This provider is there. This tree cache provider is a cluster scope provider. So if we want to utilize a cluster scope provider, we can utilize a tree cache provider. The next step is there, we have to specify concurrency strategy. So what if some cache will be created, what is the use of that, means what the restriction of the particular cache. So we can provide like a cache usage. Here we can provide that value, we can use read only, non-strict read write and transactional scope. So after that, like we have to specify the cache concurrency strategy of class, collection and association also. So here what is this a class, so we will provide like this cache we have to we would like to create CID as a cache. So we have to provide cache usage read only, property name CNAME, set name email table emails and cache use read only. So we can provide read only, non-strict read write and transactional. And after that we will call session dot set cacheable. This method we will call set cacheable method, and through that we can pass true. So like that, query queue session dot create query from customer. So after we will apply this queue dot set cacheable, will pass here true. So this particular query what we are writing, so it's become a cacheable. So during the some time period, it will be stored inside the EH cache provider, and it will not go always in database, and we will not get the data from always the database. Once the time duration will be done, that time only it will be fetch the data from the particular database. In during of that, if database is updated or something will happen, that will be notify the cacheable thing, and they can know that data is updated. So that time it will be update the cache. So same thing in QBC, what we will apply here, the Hibernate query language we applied session dot create query, and we after that queue dot set cacheable we passed here and we passed true. The same thing criteria we will utilize criteria CT session dot create criteria customer dot class. Here we will do CT dot set cacheable true, and we will get CT dot list. So these 5 steps we can achieve the cache configuration. First we have to do query cache true under the configuration document. Same thing here. The second we have to provide cache provider class. Cache provider class either the hash table cache provider, EH cache provider, OS cache provider, swarm cache provider, tree cache provider, or here the next step we will utilize cache usage. So cache usage either the read only, non-strict read write, transactional scope cache is there. So next we have to utilize like that cache usage read only, property name equal to CNAME, set name emails table equal to email, cache use read only. After that we have to do particular query with set cacheable true. So if we use HQL, this is a HQL example. So whenever we use HQL, then query queue equal to session dot create query and from customer C, and after that queue once created we will use set cacheable and will pass true. So now this data is a set cacheable. In criteria we will utilize the same thing. In criteria st equal to session dot create criteria, and here we will do ct dot set cacheable true. So both, either we will use QBC or HQL, both have a set cacheable method. So we have to set cacheable true. So by default this means this scope cache, it is a by default false, so we have to enable it. So query cache is by default disable, we have to enable it, and we can utilize in HQL and QBC like that. And after that, right now we are using a EH cache. So here we have one EH cache.xml where we have provide a few things. What thing we are providing, like some where you would like to store. So java.io.temp.dir, we want to store the file. So EH cache, disk store, path we have to provide, default cache, max element in memory. So how much object you want to store. So I just want to 100 object. Once that reach, it will be delete the last object that is stored into the particular cache. And after that, external false we will provide. Time to leave second. So 120 second that particular object leave, and whenever we want, we will get that object into the cache only. It will not contact to the database. Once the time is completed, that time it will be a go to the contact to the particular database. So time to leave second is 120 also. That thing is that much. Oh, it's a time to idle second and time to leave second is there. So overflow to disk true. Once it overflow, it will be a decided by it will be a delete automatically. So EH cache, again we have to provide like name, hello cache we use, and max element of memory 10, and this few thing we have to provide whenever we use EH cache. So when we install the EH cache kind of thing, that will be come with XML file also. So we can utilize that XML file itself to using this cache configuration here. So cache concurrency strategy, I already explained about that. That read only is there, non-stick read write there, read write there, and transaction is there. That we will utilize here in any property. Just before of that, we can utilize use cache usage, and we can provide particular state concurrency. Whenever we use annotation way, we can provide directly on the class itself that usage equal to either read only, non-stick read only, read write, and transactional. So this strategy will allow us to apply the required locking mechanism for the persistence object which are available in the query cache. In this case, case of the process scope and cluster scope cache, one persistence object can be accessed by the multiple transactions running on particular concurrency. This may leads the some concurrency problem like dirty read problem, repeated read problem, phantom read problem, but we have to avoid that. We have to know that how we can deal with this problem. And this Hibernate cache, query cache is there. We can understand what the functionality provided by this read write, non-stick read write, and read write. So your transaction is read write, non-stick read write, and read write. So CME, container management environment, non-container management environment, supported uncommitted, support committed, and support read, and support serializable. So how much support is there? So transactional scope cache we can run container management environment, as well as it support uncommitted, support committed also, it supports reads also, and it supports serializable. No, it's not. No one is supporting a serializable thing. So read write, yes, it is a running container management system. All are running in container management system, and transaction management cache is not running other than container management system. So when we would like to utilize a transaction management cache, it must be a container management only. Other than it's as it is. Other the cache provider is there. So we have a flash table cache provider, EH cache provider, OH cache provider, and that I told this is a cluster tree cache provider. So what the thing like a EH cache we going to utilize? So EH cache support type memory, and query cache support, yes it have. Read only, yes it have. Cluster type, no, it's not supporting cluster type. Non-strict read write, yes it's supporting. Read write, it's supporting. Transactional scope cache, no it's not supporting. So here only tree cache is supporting a transactional scope cache. Container management environment, yes it is working. Non-container management environment like a Tomcat, something like that, we can run it, yes we can run it. Product support, yes it have a product support. So generally in the project or low level means a small application, they are using a EH cache provider. So what is the difference in a tree cache provider? So tree cache is a cluster type and it is supporting a query cache. It is a have read only, it have a cluster type, but it's not supporting non-strict read only and read write. And transactional scope cache, it yes transaction CME, yes container management environment it support. Non-container management environment is not run. Product support, yes it have a product support. But so next example is filter. So I will see in the next lab how we can filter. Now we will working on cache itself. So we will see that how that means what the definition come in the JBoss itself. So this is a cache. The query cache is there. If you have a queries that run over and over with the same properties, query cache provide performance gain, because if we try to fetch the data multiple time and data is the same kind of thing, then we can reduce means increase the performance utilizing a cache. So here cache introduce overhead in the area of transactional processing. For example, if you cache result of a query against the object, Hibernate need to keep track of whether any changes have been committed against the particular object and invite the cache accordingly. In addition, benefit from the cache query result is limited and highly dependent on the usage pattern of the particular application. For those reasons, Hibernate disable query caches by default. I already explained about this thing. Means for example, after the begin transaction, if we are doing a 10 or 20 operation, and each operation we will go and make the connection between the database, and they will effect make the changes in the database. So 20 time we have to travel in our application to database. Now what has happened, we will created one cache. So what the transaction is happen, you will just push into the particular cache inside only. So we are doing a 20 a task during that begin transaction and commit transaction. So all the tasks stored inside the particular cache itself, and when we are committing that time itself only the particular connection is established between our application and database, and that time only it is a push. So it will be reduced number of round trip, because for 20 application, for 20 process we are connecting between a database and application 20 time, but now we have to reduce that 20 time. Whenever we will do that tx.commit, that time only it is a committed in the databases. So that is the example, and after that we have to set few steps that I already explained. Hibernate cache use carry cache, we have to enable it. So we have to write true. So after that timeout we can utilize. For enable result caching, a specific query also we have to do. So query cache we can do in the programmatically also. What we did in the XML file we can do here in programmatically also. What we will do, like a session dot create query, what query we are passing. After that set entity, what entity we want. After that set max results. So that session means that cache it's a holding only that 50 element. After that it will be not hold. Set cacheable true, we have to provide set cacheable true here, and set cache region, we will provide the particular region. After that we will get the list, so it will return the particular list. The second level cache provider, many provider is there, and we already see that what is the second level and what is the second level provider. So I explained about that how we can use here a strategy, concurrency strategy in the core file. Here we just have to provide, if we using annotation inside that entity classes, we have to just do enable @cacheable. So it's automatically have that cacheable equal to true, we have to do there in XML. The same replacement of the annotation we can utilize @cacheable here. After that at the rate cache is there. So here this is responsible to write some strategy here. So use concurrency strategy, non-strict read write, what the strategy is there, we will provide it. So through that we can do the annotation configuration of particular cache. So here the strategy is either none, read only, non-strict read write and transactional. Here cache use, that I already told you that here cache we have to provide usage, that transactional. This thing we can utilize in the core configuration. This thing we can utilize the annotation configuration. So don't confuse between the both configuration. Both are the same, only way of providing the data is changed. Here we are providing data itself in the classes. Here it's a separate, we have to provide all the information in particular XML file here. So either it's a transaction, either read write, either non-strict read write or read only. So caching strategy, here we can provide transactional read write, non-strict read write and all thing. What is this one? So read only, a read only cache is good for the data that need to be read only often but not modify. So whenever we provide a cache read only, that cache we cannot modify. It is a simple, performs well and it is safe to use a cluster environment. So non-strict read write, some application only really need to modify the data. This is case of two transactions are unlikely in try to update the same item simultaneously. So in case it do not need a strict transaction isolation and a non-strict read write cache might be appropriate. If the cache is used a JT environment, you must specify Hibernate transaction manager lookup classes in this environment. Ensure that the transaction is complete before you call session.close and session.disclose. So read write just the opposite of the read only. So we can change this also. So transactional scope, the transactional cache strategy provides supports of transactional cache provider such as JBoss tree cache provider. So whenever we use tree cache, that time we can use that concurrency strategy equal to transactional scope cache. So second level cache provider, this is I already explained in this document. We went through that cache provider and I show you that, but here we'll see that again. The hash table is there. The testing only, read only, non-strict read write here. EH cache is there that we are going to implement in our application. That is a read only, non-strict read write we can apply. OS cache, read only, non-strict read write, and swarm cache, read only, non-strict. JBoss cache 1.x, that is a tree cache, read only and transactional. JBoss cache 2.0, also the same name, tree cache provider with 2.x, that is a read only and transactional scope cache. So we can utilize any cache, and how we can map the cache on the top of this save, update, load, get, list, iterate, scroll. We can utilize that functionality. So I will show you that how we can doing that, applying that cache in the application. So go through that program and I will explain about that how we can utilizing that functionality. So this we change that. So just close all. So I have a query cache here. Quickly we will look at and how we can achieve this functionality. So we'll go through that Hibernate cfg.xml. You will not found much more changes here, only that related to few changes you can found. Even the nothing no changes available here. So what we are doing here, we are just providing a driver class, URL, username, password name, and we will just register this thing for cache. So as it is the configuration is here. Here we are going to do the provider class. So we have to provide Hibernate Cache provider class. So we are going to utilize a provider class as a EH Cache provider. We have to provide complete classified path of the EH class provider, as well as we can utilize that jar file itself. EH Cache 1.1 jar file. So here we have yeah, so this jar file is responsible to store value. So we have to provide complete classified path of the particular EH Cache provider. So org.hibernate.cache.eh cache provider. Other than we will not do anything, that as it is. So SQL HBM to DDL auto true and resource we have to provide, and we see that quickly how much changes is here in the that mapping doc. So mapping document we just have to register as it is. So here Hibernate mapping, we will use this Hibernate related thing, and we can map as it is here. So after that, just 1 minute, this is a wrong file. So we are here, so we have to use that contact.hpm. We have to write one so as it is the configuration also not change here. Cache related, that cacheable true we have to register somewhere. So SQL like a property, this cache class we have to provide property name Hibernate cache use cache query true. I think this is a missing in this file. So two things we have to change related to cache. We have to register provider class, and after that we will use Hibernate cache use query cache that true, and it will be done. So Hibernate here mapping document contact.hpm.xml, no changes for related to configuration. And here we have the contact class. So as it is, class is there, variables and constructor, default constructor, getter, setter, and toString as it is. And next we have client 2. So we are doing here what the thing we are doing. So after begin session, when we will create this session dot create query and we will pass that particular query, that time we will write q dot set cacheable true. So this thing we have to provide. So only that three thing. The next is there ehcache.xml we have to provide. So here we have to provide two things, in which path he would like. So we will like to store the disk java.io.temp directory. So it will be store the value in the temp directory itself. So max element in memory. So now it's 100 value will be stored in the memory. If once it will increase, it will be delete the last element who insert in the memory. So after that, time to idle second and time to leave second, it is the same, and overflow the disk, it's a true. If you overflow that, it's okay. So cache visual cache name we have to provide. So now we are using a cache name as a visual path. So max element name again the 10, and we have to provide time to idle second, time to leave second, and overflow disk is true. So this thing we have to configure under the ehcache.xml. You will just download ehcache, you will get this complete configuration, and more thing is there, more configuration tag is there. You just try to understand this tag also, but right now we no need to do anything, that is enough. And we will go here, just enable this transaction and it's run, it will work fine. So session is ended. Here they are triggering this thing, but it is getting through the cache itself. So this is a very easiest way to configure a cache. I show you that how ehcache configuration is happen. If you want to change the ehcache provider, if you want to use some other provider, you have to change here provider class. Other than thing is same, and when you change the provider class, you have to change that ehcache, like that particular cache XML file or something we have to do here. So according to that it will work. Just try to create a cache, just try to get the knowledge of the cache, go through that this JBoss document 4.0 cache related thing, cache strategy and all. I think here also you will get a very clear. I also mentioned it's a very clear. So now it's very easy to implement a query cache or cluster scope cache also try to create, but there we have to create a environment like a CM means cluster environment we have to create. According of that we can utilize a tree cache or JBoss cache. So now it's a cache related knowledge, and we know the how we can manage the cache and what type of cache we are dealing. The next topic is the filter. So we'll see that how we can filter the particular data and how we can access filter in our Hibernate application. So in this video, thanks for watching the video. The next video I will explain about that filter.